Phase 4 was revealed last night in San Diego Comic-Con at Hall H, and we did a really awesome live stream of all of the news as it broke, but we thought it would be a really good idea to break down everything into one easy to find place. So this video is going to cover a brief overview of everything that happened, and we'll do deep dives later. However, before we go any farther, we are giving away multiple copies of Avengers Endgame at the end of this month, and all you have to do to be entered in to win is simple. First, be a subscriber. Second, like the video. And third, comment below on what film you're most excited for and why. So 11 total projects were announced, plus some other, hints at other things, but let's discuss everything that happened. First up, on May 1st, 2020, we have Black Widow starring Scarlett Johansson, which will tell the story about the return to Budapest. This story takes place between Civil War and Infinity War and features David Harbour of Stranger Things as Red Guardian, as well as the infamous villain Taskmaster. Next, after that, in fall 2020, we have the Disney Plus show, the debut show for that platform, Falcon and Winter Soldier. This will be the first time that we see Falcon acting in the mantle of Captain America, and we also saw that Daniel Bruhl will be reprising his role as Baron Zemo, except this time he will be a bit more comic accurate than before by sporting his famous purple hood. On November 6, 2020, we have the Eternals, and the Eternals in the comics are an offshoot of a genetically advanced alien beings who are directly responsible for life on Earth. This film has a pretty rock-solid cast with Angelina Jolie, Richard Madden, Selma Hayek, and Brian T. Henry, and this film is definitely going to be the sleeper of Phase 4, and I think it will help set up the majority of the next phase. And considering the high likelihood that this is a prequel for a number of other films, I wouldn't be surprised if we also get a feature of the most famous of all Eternals, Thanos, the Mad Titan, who is a deviant or mutated Eternal. In February 2021, we get Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and this film stars Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, but quite possibly the biggest news out of this is that the main antagonist of the film is set to be the Mandarin. No, not that Mandarin. The real Mandarin. Remember, we learned from a short story at the end of the Blu-ray features of Iron Man 3 that the real Mandarin does exist in the MCU, and he is not happy about his name being used as a mockery. In spring 2021, we have the Disney Plus show WandaVision, and this show of course stars Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany reprising their roles, but seems to be pretty mysterious other than that. We know it takes place after Endgame, but the context of how the show returns Vision isn't quite clear. May 7th, 2021 sees the return of the Sorcerer Supreme Benadryl Camelback in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is an insane title for a film. This movie has a bananas title, but we do know that the main villain of the film is Nightmare. Now personally, I think Keanu Reeves would play a fantastic Nightmare, and considering the MCU and Keanu have been in talks for a while, I think that it would make a lot of sense to include him in this. Additionally, we know that this film is aiming to be the first truly scary film that takes place in the MCU, so that's pretty interesting to see in terms of tonality and concept. And considering how insane all of the multiverse discussions have been in the MCU community, it is no doubt that this film will have massive ramifications for the rest of the MCU going forward. Spring 2021 sees the launch of the Disney Plus show Loki. Not much is known here except for the fact that it will focus on the version of Loki who stole the Tesseract and disappeared during Endgame. This means that Loki never experienced any of the events that took place during Thor: The Dark World, Ragnarok, or Infinity War, so you can throw all of that character building right out the window because we're going back to evil Loki, which personally, that's my favorite Loki. Summer 2021 brings the Disney Plus show What If, which will focus on a bunch of, what if type scenarios about the MCU. And this show is animated, but the main point that we learned about it that has so many people hyped is that the majority of the MCU actors and actresses will be doing the voiceover work for these characters. That alone to me is worth the price of admission. This also might help strengthen the multiversal theory, where each of these events kind of happens in their own reality. So we can already see that the multiverse is becoming a very, very important aspect of the MCU. Fall 2021 sees my most anticipated Disney Plus show, and that is Hawkeye. This show features Jeremy Renner, again reprising his role as Clint Barton in Hawkeye, but it also features the debut of Kate Bishop, the young Avenger, who for a time takes over the mantle of Hawkeye. Now, the logo is based off of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye logo, and I would really like to see it be a more grounded show similar to the Netflix shows, but also starring a similar kind of story element to what Matt Fraction wrote, where Hawkeye was more of a ground level superhero. I'm really excited about this. I've already made a video about it in the past, so expect more content as it drops. November 5th launches quite possibly the craziest film that Marvel announced, Thor: Love and Thunder, which will see Natalie Portman reprising her role as Jane Foster, except this time gaining Mjolnir and the powers of Thor. This film is going to be crazy, and it's also going to be loosely based off the Jason Aaron Mighty Thor series, which saw a cancer-ridden Jane Foster inherit the powers of Thor to become the God of Thunder. No doubt Chris Hemsworth Thor will be featured, but probably as merely Odin's son with Stormbreaker, and hopefully not fat. I was not a fan, as you guys who have been around for a while can probably tell. The last film that was announced was a huge bombshell, the return of Blade, starring Mahershala Ali, who you might remember as playing Cottonmouth. Now, not much was announced alongside of this, but it was a massive bombshell that nobody saw coming. This was huge considering Blade was Marvel's first venture into making their own films back in the 90s. While the original Blades are not considered part of the MCU, this film will firmly integrate Blade and vampires into the MCU in some capacity. Lastly, we have a couple other pieces of super minor news. Fantastic Four and X-Men were both confirmed if you're into those, but no real information was given. Just kidding, that is of course massive bombshell news, but just the mention of those and those properties are enough to get your blood flowing, but not much information was given about that. You can tell that they haven't really gone too far into that creative process yet. And the last is that Black Panther 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 were also mentioned, but no new info was given about those either. And that is about it for all of the high-level news that came out of Hall H last night in San Diego Comic-Con. We hope you guys learned a lot, and remember to comment below to be entered in for a chance to win a copy of Avengers Endgame on Blu-ray. Again, we're giving out a ton of those copies this month. This has been Nick for Key Issues. Thank you guys for watching this video, and remember the motto, MCU over everything.